Bum 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 bum. I managed to survive the attack from the previous episode. But because of that, it left me with a deeper voice temporarily. Well, at least for this part. Sorry for that. Mildly deep part. But yes, today we'll be covering two of my major variants in my own series. I am, of course, the main one, and the other two being Draconis, who, if you're new to the channel, you might not recognize unless if you watched my Apocalypse series. Funnily enough, this guy has went through 4 different designs. His first design when I first made him, his evolved design, his melted / disintegrated design, and this one being a more accurate design, actually giving him the shankles of a dinosaur, more akin to that of actual kinda Godzilla legs, but more similar to that of the other variant, Crystal Dagon, who is a clone of Dagon after some of his DNA went into a black hole and crystallized into various weird formations. And today we'll be covering all the information for these characters, their origin, their abilities, their feats, and most importantly, well, for my series, because I barely mention, their interactions and behavioral changes around other characters. Let us begin. Also, a general question: why isn't there like a wiki for all the custom kaiju ever created? I don't know, just for fun. I mean, if you're watching this video, hopefully you agree with that. Draconis is at the time of his creation, one of my biggest pipe cleaner creations. That title now goes to Void Ghidorah, although he can't even stand. So that means he is first place for the largest creation of pipe cleaners that could actually stand. For size comparison, here's Dagon, who is based off of the Hayatoys 2024 Godzilla GXK variant. Here's him fully stanced up. And here's him in his actually able to stand pose. From down here you can see he's like when, hold on. There, I made them right next to each other. That's their size when they're both stanced up. He's slouched, but if he was standing normally, and if he was able to stand normally, this is his height. Yeah, a lot more noticeable now, ain't it? Especially with his blood red eyes I gave him. Now, Draconis, if you don't know, is a parasite. This isn't his actual true form. His true form would look more like a centipede with like 50 eyes. But because he is only able to possess gods, and really the only options were, in the most newest version of the lore, would be between Mario A, Crystal Dagon, who wasn't even formed at the time of his creation. So that's out of the picture. The Great Elder, who could evaporate him off of his body before he could fully take hold. Dagon, who was a all-rounder and basically in between. And Drathulu, the Megaverse God, who is literally unable to be accessed even by the parasite's impossible means of transportation. So, thus, the forms you see of Draconis is his possession over Godzilla as a host. Well, Godzilla or Dagon, because both would lead to a very same outcome. As explained in the now, basically, one of the episodes, which is I'm pretty sure called "The Dark Truth," it explains some very unique information about Draconis. Every 10,000 years, this parasite would fall into this reality from a demonic dimension where parasites rule over the minds of everything and everyone. Draconis being the leader and, of course, the most powerful parasite. So he would send a exact clone of himself that is the exact same power to another universe to start the process over. It has worked for 3 universes, but the one that has held him off the most was of course the one that properly killed him off forever, since it took so much of his resources that of course the one that possessed Dagon was the original Draconis to finally put a stop to him. And of course, those other 3 universes, Dagon went in afterwards to exterminate the parasites there as well, so thus this process does not repeat again. But the story goes that every 10,000 years, a member of Dagon's species, the Gojiras, would get possessed by this creature, and you'd either have to let it grow in power and let the beast inside kill him in order to actually fully kill him. And of course, we had to do this like twice in order to properly kill him, because doing it twice also damages the original. So when Dagon did it, it also destroyed the original, which means no more copies were able to be made. Again, you need the original's blood in order to make a copy. And because of this, Draconis was no more after that fight. But the other way that the Gojiras did, which, of course, because of this, allowed for many, many records of Draconis' kill feed, they just killed him in his first form as soon as the parasite took hold in the beast, which caused to the weakening of the Gojira species, because only the strongest were able to merge into the beast. And, of course, be consumed. Thus, they became weak, and directly after that, in between one of the grace periods before he returned, Ghidorah struck, killing them all. And again, later down the line, Dagon was fully in control, and thus that's when the Apocalypse series began, when Dagon unknowingly went close to the egg of said cloned parasite, where it latched onto him and made him have an insatiable hunger in order to evolve and become literally just reptilian death. Now, design changes. This one's a very unique one, because he technically has 4, although 3 differences has only been shown properly, and I'll explain. Technically, actually, he has 5. His original design I was planning would have been a mixture of Black Mask Gojira, which has like multiple limbs coming out of his body, and Shin Godzilla, with like the bloodshot pupils and messed up teeth with like wrinkly, blood soaked skin. But that would actually make him look a lot more weak, and either that or like very, very terrifying. That was his concept art phase. Then I eventually decided to add Destroya into the mix, and well, I also added a bit of Space Godzilla, and I'm pretty sure some of Godzilla Earth, and then we ended up with this design once I added Zilla into the mix to give him like a bit of like, the single row of massive spikes. And the second form would be my first attempt to create him with the pipe cleaners I had on me at the time. Which, if you ever watched his first appearance, yeah, it was something alright. He broke like half of his fingers because it was literally just a single pipe cleaner for said fingers. His new evolved design uses 4 pipe cleaners for his fingers, so they haven't broke yet, which is good. And of course, another part of his old design was that it didn't look like an acid trip like this. He was just brown with orange eyes. In his evolved design, I changed it to red with a uranium green face and chest spike, blue dorsal plates, orange hands, and white feet, and a purple tail tip for his spikes on his tail. Well, thagomizers, technically, you can call them that. The rest of the body, I didn't really care what color it was. I just wanted it to be like a darker color, to look like only certain parts of his body evolved. But then it kind of led into this, and that's how his evolved state was made. His melted or destroyed state, which would be the 4th variation of him, was basically my way of an excuse to show off all the wear and tear that I have on this guy for using him so much. Pretty sure in that fight scene I caused him to actually break his leg, or his crotch at least, because if you flip him on his underside, he has a very clear weak leg. This one right here, you can clearly see that seam right there. It's starting to fall off a bit. I'm pretty sure that's because of the deleted scene that I was planning to do of Dagon fighting him on the stairway and tossing him down it as if it was Scar to Mufasa off a cliff. I cut that scene for many reasons. One, I never got the right setup where he fell all the way to the bottom without him hitting a single step. I was trying to make him hit a couple steps to make it look like he was hitting rocks or breaking his spine all the way down, like that one Peter Griffin scene where he falls down the stairs. But I also wanted it to look a bit dramatic, like the Mufasa death scene from the original Lion King, not the remake. The remake is absolutely fucking soulless. Anyways, yeah. That scene, well, there's also other reasons why that scene was deleted. It was because I couldn't really find a place to, actively, properly transport Dagon and Drakonis along with other cast members outside of the room. quickly and actually logically, without it looking kind of shit. I mean, at the time, I didn't really properly know how to. I didn't, at the time, I tried to use the pause method, but I wasn't really as good as it as I am now. So that was a bit of a miss, a swing and miss, if you can call it that. Now it's on to the most recent design, which you see him in today, his fixed design, where I slimmed up his nasal horn a bit because the pipe cleaners inside that were breaking, so they had to slim up. Made his legs look more like my modern design for making dinosaur or reptilian legs in general for like dinosaur shaped creatures, and a more sprawled out arm, kind of making him walk like a semi quadrupedal stance so he can stand but also rise at the same time and still look menacing. Now it's time to go over his. Well, let's cover his abilities first before we move on to the absolute Looney Tunes levels of bullshit this guy pulls in his feats. He shoots a crimson parasital heat ray that can potentially have the effect of infecting other powerful creatures. If it's too weak, it just kills them. As shown in the series, but I never really brought anywhere because I actually broke that pipe cleaner Mega Raptor that I showed off in that video. But he does have the ability to infect others like a zombie through his bite. He has a similar ability to Destroya where he's able to superheat his horn, but instead of with like plasma or whatever Destroya's heated horn attack was called again, it's a crimson heated saw, more or less. Well, sword. There's two forms, the slashing and the piercing, or stabbing, as some shall call it. But I don't really like that form because it messes up his horn even more. I just showed you as an example. Other abilities include his Death Stare, which increases fear by very much because it also counts as a way to spread hallucinations. He is able to raise his chest spike up a bit in order to stab people via a ramming method of sorts. He has powerful arms strong enough to break through diamonds with a single slash. A tail that can cut through a gun that produces black holes. It could also do the tail cutter thing that Godzilla Earth does with his tail. Draconis is able to commit One Punch Man. But instead of a punch, it's like a stab where he puts all his three fingers together and just straight up stabs you in the chest. So he commits one stab moves, having a ability where he's able to see your organs, target your most vulnerable organ, and basically commit mass genocide with the ability to stab through all weaknesses. I don't really know that weird hazing effect. I might be a bit sleep deprived, but kind of looks like his neck's pixelating. Although it could be because I'm partially blind. I don't really know. Another ability that Draconis has that he doesn't really show, but he is able to do, he would use his powerful arms to cut portals to other realities and dimensions. I was actually planning to make that an episode where he uses that power just to troll the other characters by just walking away, terrorizing another world just to gain power real quick, coming back a bit stronger, beating up one of them, and then doing the process over again. I cut that because Draconis' Apocalypse series is supposed to be serious, not goofy. But it is partially canon that he will do that if given the opportunity. Other things he's capable of is bending reality, consuming black holes, and creating parasite swarms from his body. Now it's on to his feats of strength. He was able to toss around Dagon in his supercharged state for a bit. Now, Draconis at maximum power was stronger than the multiverse god, which, out of all the mainly used characters, he is by far the strongest. That being in the recently updated canon, Mario A. Yeah, and other feats include surviving a gun that can destroy black holes with a single shot, literally having Dagon crawl out of his spine in order to get out of his parasitic body, surviving 2 nuclear shockwaves from Dagon's supercharged state. And just for scale, Dagon's supercharged state alone would be able to erase like 90% of the population of every single character ever. The only ones being able to survive would be Mario A, Horror Dagon or Bloodborne Dagon, Crystal Dagon, also known as Space Dagon, Cthulhu, the Great Elder One, Void Ghidorah, and I'm pretty sure I already mentioned it, but Mario A, just in case if I didn't. Along with Dagon himself also being able to survive it. He survived that same attack 3 times in a row. Well, 2 times, I guess, before, maybe 3, I'm not sure, I haven't watched the video, well, the final video before making this one again. So it might have been 2 or 3 times before he was fully evaporated. Although he did take heavy damage, he was still ready to fight this bastard when he was able to get up. But then he got immediately, gunned down again. So, yeah, that was pretty hard for him to even comprehend his own death. Oh yeah, other feats. shows him taking on an army of the most encouraged bastards. Well, encouraged and very enraged characters after the death of Old Man Barry, who, no need to worry, was revived after the either off screen or in the video. I don't remember which one. Yeah, everyone besides like Bloodborne, Dagon, and Draconis are on good. The only two people who are not on good terms with Old Man Barry would be Draconis and Bloodborne Dagon. That's really it. Anyways, so another scale of that shockwave was that it was able to disrupt reality itself, which is why the world was shaking, and of course the colors go on acid trips every once in a while in like the entire series. Draconis is also able to replicate this with his roars alone that partially shatter reality. Thus, the acid trip of colors every time he roars when he's off screen. Just like Shin, he is able to self-mutate and evolve, as long as his host allows him to evolve. As long as his host is able to withstand the evolution. If not, then he will not be able to evolve or whatever. Because of this, he does have limitations on how strong he can get when he evolves, let alone to try anything sneaky. But Draconis manages to pull by. His final feat, that I will prove to be canon, is that he is able to possess higher entities in higher planes of existence. Think of the Megaverse God or the Omniverse God. That's in his parasite state before he possesses someone. He's able to infect higher levels of entities. So if this form ain't good enough, he ditches this body, the body immediately evaporates, so nothing's left to use to figure out any weaknesses of him. And of course, then he'd immediately latch on to the deity and start absorbing some of his power as he starts to crave food in order to fill the lack of power. This is why Dagon started going on an endless hungry streak. And eventually will evolve into a state very similar, probably just like the skeleton, but like a bit altered of said creature that looks slightly malnourished. So, for example, let's say if he possessed Mario A, for an example, instead of Dagon. Instead of, looking like this, his first stage would look like Mario A, with certain features slightly exaggerated, but everything else looking malnourished and just skin and bone. When he evolves, he would look a lot more exaggerated. Those exaggerated features are exaggerated further, as previously non-exaggerated features are now exaggerated, and his body would overall become a bit bigger. So basically, that's what would happen. As an example of what would happen if he does it to someone else. Now, on to his relations. He doesn't get along with anyone. That's it. He just will hate and kill everyone and everything. I'm pretty sure I covered everything. Now it's time to move on to the second bastard. I will make a documentary of Bloodborne Dagon once I'm able to make him, by the way. Now it's time for Crystal Dagon, or Space Dagon's variant, segment of the video. So Space Dagon or Crystal Dagon, as he's formerly known in the Hollow Earth, is a genetic clone of Dagon after his DNA mixed with Ghidorah's during their epic fight alongside Mothra's, whose blood was on Ghidorah at the time after Ghidorah murdered her, alongside with like a bit of Rodan because he fought Rodan a bit. And I'm pretty sure a tiny bit of what's his name? Oh yeah, a tiny bit of the Great Elder too, since he was at the fight watching. Although he did get slightly scratched due to a reality-shattering blast between the two of them. When Ghidorah flew off to retreat, all that blood mixing together fell off Ghidorah, landing onto a very absorbent and slightly transparent crystal, which was in the pathway of a black hole. A couple thousand years later, when that crystal had a small vein system of said blood curling throughout its weird crystalline interior, it was consumed by the black hole. The black hole immediately started to collapse in on itself as the crystal began to mutate and absorb the black hole itself. Slowly out from the epicenter of the black hole, Crystal Dagon emerges, consuming the rest of the black hole and heading back to Earth. Well, Reality Zero's Earth, which is the current reality, I'm pretty sure. I just call it Reality Zero since it's like the center of everything. Oh, fuck. So, yeah. Crystal Dagon's origin is something. When reaching back to Earth, seeing Dagon and having multiple DNAs of creatures who see Dagon not as an ally but as a foe, they fought the first time they met. A couple character development later, he now thinks of Dagon as a brother and respectively each own a separate portion of the Hollow Earth. Dagon controlling the northwest to the northeast, and Crystal Dagon controlling the southwest to the southeast. What happens at the very center of this, no one knows. Like at the very center or boundary between both, because according to legends, it is claimed by a entity known as Bloodborne Dagon, who controls random portions and areas in between the two major powerhouses of the Hollow Earth, that being Dagon and Crystal Dagon. Horror Dagon, being a lot more powerful than both of them combined, can control the entire Hollow Earth, but prefers to stick to himself and just has like a small territory in between each. But in due time, but that's mainly because he's trapped within inside a very deep pit. So once he crawls his way out, it ain't gonna be good for the Hollow Earth. Hint, hint at future series once I make him. Anyways, Crystal Dagon has a very unique cast of relationships between one another characters. He's on good terms with Dagon, bad terms on Mothra, which is an ally and close friend of Dagon, good terms for Anguirus, mild terms with Old Man Barry, great terms with Rodan, meh terms with half of the other members in the main cast. Funnily enough, he went back in time once just to meet Draconis and managed to get on mid terms with Draconis, being the only person who actually managed to impress Draconis enough to where he thought of not killing him. But then he left, so Draconis went back to killing. Crystal Dagon is very strange when it comes to relationships between other characters, as I said. Now, there's two variants that I made of Crystal Dagon. Well, three. His concept art phase, his skeleton stage, basically, well, not really skeleton, but more or less a husk phase, where I didn't have access to all the pipe cleaners I needed to finish him, so he looked like half malnourished, half skeleton, which was pretty hilarious to look at the time. It was literally just like cut down in the middle. His upper half, basically up here on the finger, was filled out fully. The lower half, like this, was not. So he looked like a buff stick figure. Like the ones with like, the stick figures that some people draw with like the jacked abs and like beefy arms, but still have like the tiny little stick legs. That's what he looked like when he was in development. And then of course this being the final product. Oh, and of course you can count the forgotten variant when I first tried to make Draconis. I actually was planning to make a Space Godzilla-like character, which eventually formed into him. But I scrapped that idea for something based more on Destroya being based more on something like Destroya or Ghidorah as a satanic-like villain. Yeah, but besides that, he's a pretty chill dude. With his, I guess you can call that yellow dot his eye right there. But the other yellow lines I can just describe as like seams. I took inspiration from like quartz and other weird crystal shape formations to form like the shoulder crystals, the back the tail crystal and the dorsal plates itself, giving them a very, manufactured or like randomly AI generated type of shapes and positions. With his nasal horn being the one I specifically decided to do myself, basing it off of Space Godzilla's actual horn, the concept art, and other weird crystal formations. I mixed them all into this crystal horn. The concept art had this shown, a spine with two protruding outlines. So from the front, I would think it would look like this, but I'm not sure because, again, at the time, I never planned him to be a canon character until I was so bored one day, I actually decided to make him a canon character just to see what it would be like with a clone of Dagon. Because, I mean, I never really made a clone type of character, so I didn't really know what they had to look like or what were like, the type of ways that you had to describe them, if they were supposed to be weaker or stronger than their originals. So what I just did the exact opposite of what I thought I was supposed to do, just to make them a bit more unique. Now it's time for his feats of strength. Well, his feats in general. He's able to his feats and abilities mixed into one. He's able to consume black holes. He can create black holes, crystals, and arrow crystals of two variants, a freezing crystal and an explosive crystal, along with normal crystals as well, technically counting as a third. He has the ability to malform certain parts of his body into random shapes and forms, so you can never memorize his exact details. He can use his tail as some sort of magical staff, along with a club or sledgehammer, depending on which one he views as the most useful at the time. He's able to levitate, use telekinesis, and fly. He is also able to self-mutate, self-evolve, and self-enhance himself beyond normal recognition. He has big beefy arms similar to that of Dagon, but again with the One Punch Man trait carried over from Drakonis. He's able to punch really, really hard. Like really, really, really hard. Like the if I flick a diamond, it shatters into billions of pieces type of strong and hard or whatever. And, well, other feats of strength involve creating storms, manipulating weather, manipulating time, manipulating space, manipulating people's minds, mind control, telepathy, the ability to create multiple different elements, the ability to create new elements, the ability to manipulate and, of course, survive the dark flame, which in our canon is the strongest type of fire, able to weaken the previous multiverse god. That is no longer properly canon, I guess. I haven't really confirmed it fully or not. I'm not sure. But just a brief summary of the Dark Flame. It is a magical variant made by a magical variant of fire that was made by a previous god that is no longer canon. That is able to weakness. That is the very weakness of multiple characters. And a general pain in the ass for the average character who has to deal with random experiences of experiments of how long can you survive the strongest fire in the multiverse. Because I really like the concept of a fucked up, really overpowered flame that's able to weaken the abilities of gods and strengthen others, I gave this ability to Crystal Dagon. He's not able to create it. No, he's able to manipulate it. Like, he's able to survive it. He can set himself on fire with it, basically becoming a walking dark flame, and spread it for miles. He's able to pick it up and spread it like wildfire. Again, he is unable to create it due to him not knowing the technique on to how. But he is able to transport it, manipulate it into different weaponry, and many other ways of usage, using it as literal battle axes. Like, imagine battle axes and crystal spears infused with the dark flame. That's what he does. And it's hilarious and very cool. I actually came up with some designs of these so-called battle axes, but I have never drawn them at all, even though I actually came up with like designs for them. So unfortunately, you won't be able to get to see them. Other abilities include nuclear lightning blasts, the creation of crystal explosives, crystal freezing grenades, technically, crystal arrows that basically act like guided missiles, and the most fun ability that I gave him, which I'm probably gonna get messed with, but talked about on this with my friends a bit, maybe, I'm not sure. I'm definitely gonna be talked to about the Dark Flame one, but the other one, well, my friend, I guess you can say that now. I'm definitely gonna be talked to my friend about the Dark Flame bit, but this bit is gonna be well, I'm gonna be surprised on how he reacts for this one. He's able to destroy realities by snapping his fingers because he's bored. So imagine it, you're existing in your reality, just doing your own daily business. Suddenly everything around you collapses and ceases to exist. Boom, one less universe. As he snaps it out of existence because he's bored and wants to watch people suffer. Yeah, he can do that solely because why not? he's basically my experiment character to see what the fuck I can get away with and what the fuck I can't. So yeah, fun. Now the is as I yeah, no, that's pretty much it for these characters. I did manage to come up with like a really cool basic thumbnail for these guys of them locked in combat. So that's fun. Yeah, so hope you enjoyed. It was nice to use Draconis again. It's been a very long time since I used him. Heyo. Um, yeah, he's starting to like build up dust on him, which is why he looked like he got pixel reduced for a second. Yeah, so that's really it. I have nothing else to say. I should have done these two separately because their lores are massive. But I did say to a close friend of my best friend, Aunt, that I would do multiple characters in one episode from now on. So yay, a literal technically an hour-long video covering two of the most complicated characters in my entire franchise. Well, series, I guess. Thank God that's done with. And I won't be able to do it again. Yeah, so that's the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you liked the return of an old friend and the entrance of a new one. Bye-bye.